There's loads of reasons I want to do this, but actually you deserve to be treated in a specific way for what you've achieved, you know? Yeah. So that's really what it comes down to. And we're really motivated on this for many reasons, but also to make the agency work, but also to make it a success. This is a commercial deal across all of his business and an advisory role that we'll be taking and helping him plan his future, you know, across his brand, across sport, and across everything, really. And we're really excited to welcome him to the team.
All right, so in a stunning twist that is sure to piss off Dana White, Tom Aspinall has signed to Eddie Hearn's Matchroom talent agency. Obviously, this is coming hot on the heels of Dana White stealing Conor Benn away from Eddie Hearn, and although Hearn didn't quite steal Tom away from Dana yet, this is a massive indicator that Tom's time with the UFC is numbered, at least in my opinion. The fact that Tom has jumped into bed with Dana's biggest enemy at the moment is very clearly bad news for the UFC, but you know what? If you've been paying attention for the last week or so, then you might have noticed that a couple of other fighters haven't been happy with how the company's being managed. On that note, I am just completely dumbfounded at the moves that the UFC has been making as of late, because even just like 3 years ago, I felt like things were running smoothly over there, even though it was clear that there was a lack of creativity in their marketing, but nowadays from the outside looking in, it feels like the company's barely being held together with duct tape and used bubblegum. Fighters aren't able to get fights scheduled, they're rejecting big money fights from big names, and things continue to be trending in a negative direction. What I once felt like was a well-oiled machine seems to be a chaotic mess, where the only thing that's oiled nowadays is Dana White, and yeah, in this video I'm going to be talking about all this and more.
I asked him if there are any other MMA fighters that are going to be added to this talent agency, which is essentially him representing him. Yeah. Eddie representing Tom in his business dealings.
It's not a promotional deal, it's a management deal. It's representation.
Yes. And Eddie said yes, but he didn't tell me of any other names. So very, very interesting. Not a move that I expected, not a move that I think any of us expected, but your clarification is very important. And that is, Tom Aspinall doesn't fight for Matchroom. Tom Aspinall is not going to show up on a Matchroom card to fight. Essentially, to boil it down, his new manager is Eddie Hearn.
Bro, can you imagine how tense the contract negotiations are going to be between Dana and Eddie now that Eddie is Tom's manager? There is no amount of money I would not pay to be a fly on the wall during those conversations. I am really curious to see how Eddie is going to navigate the world of MMA, seeing as he's obviously a boxing guy, but at the end of the day, this feels like a very obvious move from both Tom and Eddie despite Dana. Yes, I get that they've known each other for a while, and I get that Tom has said multiple times that he wants to go to boxing sooner than later, but out of all the people Tom could have partnered with, he chose Eddie Hearn. Coincidence? I think not! You already know that Dana's been the darkest shade of tomato red ever since he heard the news. I really thought that Dana was going to be able to ride the high of stealing Conor Benn for longer than a week, but Eddie clearly didn't like being made the butt of a joke. And although I will say that Eddie acquiring Tom isn't quite as big of a move as Dana acquiring Conor, like this is a strong 10-9 round to counter Dana's 10-8, but the obvious implications of this deal are plain to see. Tom is trying to get the fuck out of the UFC and MMA as a whole as quick as he can. If he had any intent to stay in the UFC, then he could have and definitely should have found an MMA manager, but instead he partnered with one of the biggest boxing promoters in the world to sow the seeds of a transition to boxing. And hey, I fucking get it, man. For the last 2.5 years, Tom has been downright disrespected in a major way by the UFC. They made him defend his interim title while they bent over backwards for John Jones. Dana heavily suggested that Tom was faking his eye injury at UFC 321, and there were even rumors that the UFC asked Tom to relinquish his title. With the way that the UFC has treated this guy lately, you'd think that he fucked all their wives.
There was a bit of post press conference stuff. Just wanted to show you this as well.
About me? I didn't even fight last night. Just Dana.
Do you have any updates about the eye of Tom Aspinall, and is there a rematch in the works?
Oh, Jesus, don't let me talk about Tom Aspinall's eye. Apparently he's going in for a second surgery, or just had it, or and by surgery I mean injections. I have no idea. Thank you, sir. Get a quote from him. God forbid I say something about it. Go ahead.
Jeez.
How close did you think you were to
Here's your quote.
Catching strays, aren't I? Catching strays in my own living room on a Sunday morning.
I really like Tom, and as much as I would have liked to have seen him square off against Jones, I'm tired of seeing this guy get treated like dog shit by these people, and at this point, I am fully in support of him moving on to greener pastures. How many times have we heard fighters say that the UFC has taken away the passion they have for fighting? Guys like Mark Hunt, Vanderlei Silva, Francis Ngannou, Randy Couture, Frank Shamrock, and Chris Cyborg have gone on record expressing how the UFC made them feel like prisoners instead of professional athletes. Look, I understand that there's probably a lot of other pro sports where the athletes get disillusioned from the business side of the game, but at least those guys get paid millions of dollars to wipe their tears away with. The average UFC fighter gets treated like a slave for the low price of CTE and 20k to show and 20k to win.
Tom Aspinall. He was your heavyweight champion. He's recovering from double eye surgery.
He is my heavyweight champion. Yeah.
What is the situation with Tom?
Yeah, the company has talked to him. I haven't talked to him, and Tom and I obviously need to talk. You know, he came out recently, or his dad too, saying that They felt like I don't know how they said it, but that I had sort of shit on him in the way that I had spoke about, his eye injury, which was absolutely positively not the case. Tom Aspinall is a guy that I respect. He's been great, to work with. Never once did I question his injury or speak negatively about it.
Oh, wow. Now somebody's deciding to put a little respect on Tom's name. I wonder what changed. This is such a pathetic switch up out of Dana now that he knows that Tom is making serious moves to transition away from the UFC, and I can't help but get the feeling that he's panicking a little bit. The audacity of him to say that he's only ever defended Tom is insane. We've all heard what you said about him after the Gone fight.
I can't make people fight, right? If I want to put together a fight, I can't make people fight. And you definitely can't make somebody continue if they feel they've been injured. Only Tom knows what happened. Could he see? Couldn't he see? Could he continue? Only he knows that.
Man, fuck you, Baldy. If I was Tom, I wouldn't want to talk to you either. Actually, I take that back. If I was Tom and I had the chance to sit down with Dana, I'd probably ask something along the lines of, why do you not respect me? Why do you not have my back? Why have you taken advantage of me? And what have I done for you to consistently do and say things that make my life so much harder? Dana has given this guy the runaround for so long, on top of being his #1 hater, and now he's requesting to have a dialogue with this guy? Yeah, it's a little too late for that, buddy. Dana does have some good qualities as a promoter, but damage control has never been one of them. I mean, it really does not help that this guy is extremely emotional and says things to his fighters that irreparably damages their relationship, but he's never even been kind of good at mending bridges with people. And here in the case with Tom, where it's clear that he wants to get things back on the right foot, I have serious doubts that Dana's going to be able to fix the mess that he's made. Hey, but guess what, Dana? This all could have been avoided if you didn't treat Aspinall like the redheaded stepchild for like 3 years. With all that being said, check out this clip from Ariel.
All I keep hearing about is the UFC has never been more disorganized. This is what everyone's telling me. I've been checking in while I'm away. What's going on with this? What's going on with this? Why are they announcing Miami so late? Like, what's going on with that? Look at the stuff that Ronda said. You would think, like, why wouldn't you take Ronda Rousey back? You're telling me Ronda Rousey doesn't add a few more subs? You know what I mean? Against Gina or not. Why wouldn't you take her back? And so there's a part of me that is worried that this regime, like, can they close the deal? Can they make the big fights happen? Can they close these big fights? When's the last mega fight that they closed for us?
I've been feeling this way about the UFC for a minute, and I would be shocked if I was the only one out here who did. I'm not totally sure if I can pinpoint an exact moment in time when I noticed that the UFC as a whole began to slowly fall apart, but I do believe that the quality of the product lately is emblematic of the chaos within the company. The UFC is a huge corporation now that's being run by a former Thai Bo instructor in Dana White, as well as a lawyer in Hunter Campbell. I'm not sure if these guys are all that in touch with what the UFC fans and employees need in order to be happy. I complain a lot about how the UFC marketing machine is a shell of its former self, and I'm starting to wonder if the reason for us no longer getting face-to-face interviews or even cool promo videos is because the company is maybe too unorganized to pull these off now.
We gotta do all that face-off, that Paramount face-off with each other now, which is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know why. I'm gonna be facing off with this guy for like 3-4 times before the actual fight now.
I'm gonna do that one more time.
But it's like, how much organization can you possibly need to fly out 2 fighters and get them to talk shit to each other while sitting in chairs? Also, they can just hire an outside video team to make new promos, much like how they do with UFC Embedded. I don't know, it just feels like the UFC marketing team has just completely given up on doing anything even remotely exciting or interesting or unique with how they promote fights. Like, they give us a cookie cutter trailer, a poster, and a press conference. That's it. Even looking at how they marketed UFC 300, they didn't do anything different than what they did for an Apex card. And to Ariel's point, I also don't remember the last time the UFC's done a super fight. As depressing as it may be, the last super fight we've gotten might actually be Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier in 2021.
So it's in their best interest, actually, not to put on the best fights possible, but to spend as little as money as possible so that they can keep it. Dana's now legally obligated to maximize shareholder value. It's not just about, proving the concept of fighting and putting on the best fights possible and proving that this is a sport to be taken seriously, where they don't care about putting on the best fights possible. They care about putting on the most cost-effective fights possible. So,
dude, if you would have told me that Ronda Rousey of all people would provide the most succinct and frankly spot-on explanation of what's been wrong with the UFC lately, I would have called you crazy, yet here we are. I've never liked Ronda for reasons that I feel like are obvious, but credit where it's due, man, this is a perfect breakdown of the current landscape of the company. The UFC has been trying to get as much for as little as possible for years now, and it seems like their formula is working because they just posted a ridiculous 57% profit margin for 2025, even though from a fan perspective, 2025 is the worst year I've ever experienced. The UFC's primary goal is no longer longer putting on the biggest and best fights anymore. Their goal is to maximize shareholder value. They want as much as they can get for as little as possible, and I feel like that's been my biggest issue as a fan for the last couple of years.
I just want to fight and make money. I'm 36, you know, I'm not getting any younger. I just want to freaking compete. You know, if I'm going to get another chance, another opportunity to fight for a world title, I got to compete. I got to win. I got to keep winning. I got to keep proving my case. You know, so that's where it gets a bit frustrating, where you're sitting here asking for a fight, asking for a date. It kind of just keeps getting kicked down the road, and you're kind of wondering, well, is this by design? I hate to say it's by design, but I mean, it almost feels like it, right? So just kind of sitting around, getting old and wasting my youth. That's kind of where I'm at.
Oh, it's most definitely by design. Let's not forget that the UFC lost their antitrust lawsuit, where one of the issues at hand was how they manipulate fighter contracts and only let them fight when they want them to. It kind of blows my mind how or why the UFC, which is a fight promotion, will purposely bench fighters who are ready and willing to fight. Like, is this not what you want? The kid does want to fight, and they're intentionally kicking the can down the road for whatever weird reasons that we'll never fully know. I don't know, man. I still love the UFC and all. I've seen damn near every event for the last damn near 20 years, but I'm not the type of person to overlook glaring issues in the things that I love. Yes, Dana White is a clown, and it's hilarious to watch him backtrack on all the shit that he's pulled with Tom, but to an even greater extent, the company just feels like such a mess. I'm not sure what the hell is going on over there at the UFC offices, but I do know that all the things they are and are not doing are fully on display with how soulless the events feel now. Anyways, that's the video for today. Definitely let me know your thoughts on Dana and Tom Aspinall. Is there any chance they can mend their relationship? As always, if you like the video, then like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
And when I spoke to Eddie, it just seemed like it worked. It made a lot of sense to me. I think as UFC fighters, we are in contracts that we can't change, but there's a lot of value that we could make outside of the cage as well. Eddie's seen that. That's what me and my small team thought for a long time, but I wanted to just expand the team a little bit and, you know, broaden my horizons a little bit and make as much money commercially outside the octagon as well as inside. And Eddie and Matchroom are on board with that, so I'm on board with them.